This is the Advaita After Hours podcast, where we explore how spirituality influences our daily lives. Hari Om. I am Rajesh, and in today's post Thanksgiving conversation, Narayanan and I reflect on saying thank you and living a life of gratitude. We discuss the role of food in our lives and dwell upon the meaning of three common slokas that are said before eating: Brahmarpanam, Aham Vaishwanaro Bhutva, and Annapurne Sadapurne. So sit back, listen, and reflect as you join us on this journey. Hari Om Naranji, how are you?
Hari Om, Hari Om. Thank you. How are you?
Excellent. So just the two of us today. So, today we're going to touch on this idea of gratitude, and then if we get to it, food also, given that in the US we just had Thanksgiving, and like most people, we'd have probably made merry with friends and food and eating, and pretty much the whole week. That's only thing that people ask is, are you hosting? Are you ready? If you're not ready, where are you going to go and eat? And how many times are you going to eat? So, uh, but the one thing I remember about Thanksgiving is after coming to the US, my very first Thanksgiving was actually in the dorms. And we all sat around, and then everyone went around and said what they were thankful for. And some people, it was very detailed, other people, it was very cursory. But almost every time I've gone to a Thanksgiving dinner, that's a very big and central part. And that was one of the most beautiful things I liked about the custom, in that many holidays tend to be very overly commercialized, and Thanksgiving with Black Friday is no less so, but it still very much retains that idea of thanks in its name itself. So maybe we can start there in thinking about how this concept of gratitude affects your life, how you think about the concept of gratitude within our tradition, and what you hope to impart to your friends and children and family.
Yeah. So, this idea of thanks, right? And I don't know about how you feel about it, but um, in India, while I was growing up, you say thank you, but it was not that common to say thanks to anybody, right? I mean, it was kind of in a very structured way, if formal way that you say thank you, but you really don't mean, you really don't know what you're saying about. But after I came to this country, it was thank you for pretty much anything and everything. And so I've thought about has it, I mean, it initially took on some real meaning, that what was I not doing, right? What was I not doing when somebody hands you something, when somebody opens a door for you, when somebody gives a seat for you in the bus, whatever it is. I mean, I think nobody really says thank you, or at least I don't know, now it's probably would change a little bit, but nobody really said thank you. But after I came to this country and seeing how thanks has been used so liberally, and to a point where you get really fatigued with saying thank you, thank you, thank you so many times, I actually started thinking about what it actually means. And then uh, even kids, right? After some time, when kids start to go to school, they say, when they come and give you something and you don't say anything, and they ask you, like the teacher asked them, and now what? And they're expecting you to say thank you, if you're not in the habit of doing it. So after some time, I think right now it's become second nature. Whether it was really whether it's a really thoughtful thanks or it's just a casual thanks, it's become second nature. But I think it's a good thing to be thankful for, because if you look back and count the number of things that you have done to get to the point where you have gotten now, it's impossible that you've got here on your own. Even little things that we do every day, it's impossible that we have gotten on our own. And therefore, it's important to have a sense of gratitude for everything that I remember this in Chinmay Mission. in one of the lectures, some Swamiji, I don't remember, but I think many people repeat this, right? You have nothing that you came here with. You created really nothing. When you get up in the morning, sun is there giving you light. When you have food in the table. You did not cultivate that. It came through some farmer's effort and some middleman, some grocery store, and then you said, "Oh no, I cooked it." No, but the gas was there for you to cook. I mean, you couldn't even provide heat. Oh, so no, I had matchstick. Of course, as matchstick. Who dipped the fuel stick in that fuel and created matchstick for you, right? So if you start looking back, there is really nothing that we as an individual can say, I did it. I actually did nothing. It is like, as it is a collective effort. So it's an important idea to keep that in mind. Humility is never a bad virtue anyway. To make sure that whatever you have is a collective outcome and not of your own.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And, I think the one thing we sometimes lose in our day to day life is the idea of remembering that all of the five elements around us are the greatest gift that we're given, right? And, at least in a lot of like the standard morning mantras and everything, you talk about sun as the father, water as the mother, right? Agni as kind of the fire, but not even like the physical fire, but even the fire within our bodies that keep us breathing. Vayu has its own important place, but even the emptiness, right, or the ether, or like the container that it belongs in. You're even thankful for that, for allowing these things to fill the ether and occupy space. And last episode or the episode before, we had talked about this idea of having these daily prayers as a way of reminding you about all of those forces that allow you to be alive and do what you do. And that is all, I think, a form of gratitude. And I think it's an important form of gratitude because in that it also builds humility and builds control of the ego, which is, to me, I'm convinced is our biggest challenge on a day to day basis. We live in such a individualistic time in society. And that's very important to take control and have some sense that you can direct what happens on a day to day basis. But within that, to realize all these other forces that allow the world to exist.
Yeah, all these little things, whether it's a prayer that we say, or even thinking about the five elements, like you said, right? We are made of those five elements, and there is nothing beyond the five elements in what we have. It's those five things plus the mind, intellect, and the ego, and that's it. That's pretty much what we are. There's nothing more to it, and there's this Panjikaranam, the way in which all these five elements combine. One half of one thing combines with 1/8 of the four of those to form another half and to form. So there are several theories as to how all of these have come about. And if you look at it, it sounds very scientific. And so you know all if we are nothing but a part nature synthesized in some form, then the first thing that we have to give thanks to is to nature. And nature nourishes us. Nature keeps us with the water and the air and the fire and all of that. So, and like you said, to keep the ego in check, to know that it's not me who create everything and do everything. It's very easy to just look at, like, this example of when food comes in front of you. Where did this come from? Did you contribute even a bit to the creation of this? And you're sitting in and saying, oh, you know what, I paid the money to buy this, to eat it. I mean, that sounds kind of insulting to the guys who put in their blood, sweat, and tears to make what you're enjoying now. So thanks at least is the slightest we can do.
And I think the other thing is that as our supply chain has gotten more complicated, right? As you are more steps removed from the process, I think it's just a natural human tendency to feel less grateful for the way that it came to be. So, I often joke that I don't have much of a green thumb, but many people around me do have a tremendous green thumb. And I don't know that it's so much the green thumb as much as the dedication that they put into understanding that plant's life, to understanding the life of that plant, to watering it, to giving it attention, to speaking to it sometimes. And in doing that, the relationship you have with that food dramatically changes than when you just go to the supermarket and you pick it up. And I think it's like that with many things, right? We see even in within like the fields that we work in, people that are more involved in the day-to-day work, they see a different sense of value in the output that's created. So for me, even though gardening is not one of my interests or strong suits, I actually enjoy woodworking a lot. And so oftentimes, Shilika or the kids will have different projects or things that they want, right? And truthfully, it probably is much easier and maybe even cheaper to just buy it on Amazon. But to me, that process of working the wood, cleaning the wood, sanding it, constructing it, thinking about it, it gives me a different appreciation for not only that piece that I've created, but for anything that I see structure around me and think to myself, it took me so hard to put four legs and a tabletop together. How did somebody make such an intricate piece here? And then you also realize that all these things that we think of as quote unquote non-living, they really do have a characteristic, a personality. Like for example, I was working with red oak, and with each piece, you can feel the screw goes in a little bit different, or you can feel that when you put it together, the grains have their own kind of characteristics. So um, for me, it's like a daily reminder in that sense that even the things we traditionally think of as non-living, they each have their own um, aliveness in their own life.
Yeah, and skill and the interest in doing all of those. Food, for example, chefs, right? They pretty much use the same ingredients that we would use to make something, but they do when they do it. It comes very different. It comes. I mean, of course, the proportions change the way they add. Of course, there's a skill and there is an like you said, there's an interest in doing it. It's not just I collect all these things and dump it into a container and heat it and hey, there you go. There's a certain way of doing it. There's an interest, and so you pour your love and your thought process into it, and you are really devoted to that process. And any process where you do with your heart, and the outcome is definitely different, right? It may not be visible to somebody who is looking from outside, but for
Yes.
you that for you that process and the beauty in something that you put your heart and mind is very very different from what you like you said you bought from supermarket or Amazon. So I think that um that dedication, that love, that sincerity that you put into doing something. And same thing, right? If you look at people around us, when we relate to people, when we, of course, we can say that Vasudhaiva Kudumbagam, you should love everyone equally, you should have the same kind of love. I mean, it's all great concepts, and eventually where we have to get to at some point of time. But at this point of time, we have our likes and dislikes, we have things that we love more, we but that relationship, that love, so for people that we love more, what we are willing to do and what is the extent of things that we are willing to do for them and give to them is very different, right? So I think all of this is the idea that okay, now I have to go back to the gratitude story. Now I have to be thankful that I have these people, this structure around me. I have these interests that I can sustain and I can work, um, for all of which I have to be thankful for. But eventually, I think we have to get to a point where everything has to be. We have to see everything as a. So that's the whole idea of. I mean, if you look back, the prasada buddhi, taking everything as a prasadam, right? We talked about in a couple of episodes, taking everything as a gift. That's thanks, right? Because when you get everything as a gift, when you take everything and you feel everything that is a gift, then you're just thanking whoever got you that gift. Doesn't matter what you got. Eventually, it has to become that, I think.
Yeah. So I think the prasada buddhi concept is a really wonderful thing. The other thing that I started doing recently that's a little bit active is that with anything major that I've finished. So today, like when I finished this one project, I, in my mind, intentionally said the Kayana Vacha sloka, right? So Kayana Vacha Manasendreva Buddhyatmanava Praktesvavat Karomi Atyat Saklam Barasmai Narayanayati Samarpami. So anything I do with my hands, anything I do with my words, Kayana Vacha, anything I do with my mind, with the use of my senses, with the use of my intellect, uh, anything that involves nature, it's all ultimately you, right? And to me, kind of saying that intentionally is also a reminder that yes, you created something, but even that is all with the grace of the divine.
Yes. Yes.
And and it's like that small act really does reinforce this idea that one, there is a gratefulness for nature, but then a
Mhm.
gratefulness that um, we're we've been kind of given the tools to be able to create something out of nature itself.
Yeah. So, if you look at it, this is one of the best ways. I mean, we talk about so many approaches for ego annihilation, right? We very complex approaches and but this is perhaps the simplest way. Attribution is perhaps the simplest way of ego annihilation, and an attribution to somebody that. So everybody in my mind, if I have an ego and if I think I, everybody is in some way inferior to me, right? Because it's me, and I have that feeling of I can do it, I have done this. So who do I attribute to? This is like a CEO saying, "Oh, how do I give the job to you? I'm not really sure you're capable of doing it. I should be doing it because I brought this company up all the way, blah, blah, blah," whatever that is. So who do you attribute to? Who is the one that you can attribute to without any guilt? It is him only, right? So you attribute that to him. There is another way of doing it. You attribute it to somebody else who will come back and say, "No, I can't do it," and he is not going to say, "I can't do it," or "I will not take it." Also, so in whatever way it is, to attribute it to a higher power, sincerely, right? Not for a show or something, but sincerely attribute it and say, "Look, I did my best. It's yours. Now it's yours. You figure it out and you give me the reward for it. I'll take it. You say this is useless and I'm not getting anything. That's fine. I'll wait for another day to get it." And if we can cultivate that, like you've been doing with each of those projects, I think there is really no need for complex Vedanta studies to do ego annihilation. I think this is a process. This is a path if you do it right.
And to tie it back to, I think, Thanksgiving, that's why I think just that tradition of thinking about what you're thankful for, it ultimately hopefully serves as a reminder that the circumstances that let you think that you have been successful in, most of those circumstances happen to you, not because of you. And so even
Absolutely.
the folks around you that create a set of circumstances, or what we call, luck creating circumstances, those all enable that thanks. And that's very different from the reflex, please and thank you, right? Um,
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So I'll give you this very simple example that I've thought about so many times, in the context of thanks and Thanksgiving, right? So during those days when I was applying to graduate school back in India in the early 2000s, it was all, I could apply through online, but all the acceptance and the letters and the aid letters are all by mail, right? All by the regular mail. And the university sends out a regular mail. The addresses in India are complex and long and all of that. And I have thought about this, right? And the deadline to accept is very short. They send it and they think that in 15 days this letter is going to get to India and somebody's going to send it back in another 15 days and they're going to get it. And so you have to accept it within that time. And the university should know that you've accepted within that time. Otherwise, the seat would go to somebody else, right? Now, I'm sitting in India, and this whole communication channel, how many people are involved in getting me that letter, right? Right from wherever, however it went out of here, to all the air mail and I have seen physically that in Chennai airport and all, how they sort mail. It is a miracle that it came to me. The letter that was addressed came to me within that time. And then I sent it. And then I went, I remember having gone to the post office in Chennai to send this and said how much of stamp. That lady had no clue how much of stamp to put in. She said some random number. And I prayed and I gave that number. And I'm not sure, because if the guy above it decided that that's not stamp enough, he's not going to send it, right? So how much of effort was there? And if all this had to happen, now looking back, oh, it's absolute magic and grace.
Yeah. And I think it again comes back to that prasada buddhi and what we said last time, right? So when you get a no, sometimes it's a no for a reason, sometimes it's later, sometimes better. It made me think of a story when I was applying to college. This was right when email was becoming a big thing, before Gmail had been. So everyone had some random email. And I had some email. I don't even remember what it was. It wasn't Hotmail, but I was applying to college, and my father said, put my work email because that'll be stable. But, I was what, 16 or 17 at the time. Like, no, 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 I have my own email. Put my own email. So I applied. Couple of months went by, and that email company went out of business. Right? So then anyway, um, just like you said, eventually the acceptance letter came 1 month after the deadline to accept the acceptance. And I remember that day I was in the bathroom by myself, crying because I missed this, crying because I should have put my father's email. And it took me so long to realize that that was just not meant to be, right? That was, again, this idea of God saying, not no, but I've got a different idea and a different path for you, right? So sometimes even in our stupidity, there is some plan. But also I think that's where this idea of true prasada buddhi makes it such that there really is no point in regretting the future or fearing regretting the past or fearing the future, because for the most part all of it is a gift, and when it doesn't go the way you think you want it to go, just remembering that every no is either a no, not yet, or a maybe better. um, I think the other interesting thing that uh, I wanted to kind of build off of is, just like Kayana Vacha is an idea that everything goes back to God, right? One of the things that had always stumped me for a long time is that one shloka that I think most people say before eating, which is Brahmarpanam. So Brahmarpanam, Brahmavir, Brahmagnav, Brahmanahutam, Brahmavidena Gantavyam, Brahma Karma Samadhina. It has nothing to do with food. So why are we saying it before eating? It doesn't say annam or anything related to food even one time. So it always stumped me as to how this Bhagavad Gita verse got chosen as the universal thank you for the food sloka. We have lots of other ones. Maybe you can kind of expound a little bit on it, and we can talk about the meaning and how um, that's a relationship of, it's a
Yeah,
different relationship of food to our bodies than I think what we usually
correct.
think about.
Correct. So this is, this comes in chapter 3 of Gita, where you're talking about all the yajnas, right? All the offerings, and all offerings are an offering to me, in terms of, or God says all offerings are an offering to me. So Brahma Arpanam, Brahma Havi. So Arpanam, in the ghee, is an offering. The ladle that you offer the ghee with is an offering. The fire is an offering. The burning, the process of burning is an offering. And whatever comes out of it, it gives you that this entire picture of, there is nothing other than that spirit of yajna in which you do everything. But we do that for food because one of the explanations I've heard is that the act that you do 3 times a day without fail is eating. Right? So there is no other act that you do methodically at the exact time, generally, at the exact times. And even if you miss it, you will come back and do it before it's too late. And think about it, even prayer, right? 6 o'clock, I'm out, I'm back home at 8. I'll say, you know what, 6 o'clock prayer, I missed it tomorrow morning. Whereas food, I will not. right? So I think the structure, they made it in such a way that since you will do it 3 times a day, no matter what it is, chant this and make sure that the offering, the fact that everything is an offering, is built into you. And the same thing, in all the Chinmaya mission centers, they chant 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita before all the meals. And 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita is Purushottama Yogam. Again, nothing to do with food. It's with the ultimate Brahman. Know who you are ultimately. Again, the idea that you may be doing a lot of random things and forgetting everything for the rest of most of the day. But if there is one point that you can bring back this idea routinely, methodologically every day without fail, is just before you eat, because you will eat. And so
Yes.
you do that. And I think that is how it has gotten into that structure.
Yeah, because I think the 15th one you're referring to is the Aham Vaishwanaro, right? Aham Vaishwanaro
That's, yeah.
Bhutva
Praninam
Praninam
Dehi,
Deham Ashritam Prana
Pranam
Apana Samyukta
Samaya, Pajamyanam
Pachamya
Chaturvidam.
Annam Chaturvidam. So I think the beautiful idea in all of this is um, like for me, the Brahmarpanam, it's such a reminder, right? Because in that, Brahmarpanam Brahmavir, that's the oblation, the Havir, I mean, it's the butter or the thing that you offer. But then Brahmagno Brahmanahatam. So the very fire that you offer to is Brahman. What you're offering is also Brahman. And through doing karmas and doing things with the understanding that it all goes to Brahman, you yourself become Brahman. It's almost like that unifying principle, right? And in some ways, there's so many of these cliches about you are what you eat and what you put into your body is what you become. And I think this is kind of a reminder of that, right? The food that you're looking at, that is Brahman. You put it into yourself, that is Brahman entering you. And it just kind of overall pushes this idea of really that Advaita concept of just recognizing that Brahman is who you are.
Yes, there's only one thing and nothing but Brahman.
And, the Aham Vaishwanaro Bhutva is also an interesting take, right? In that even though both are in Bhagavad Gita, at least the 15th chapter verse, it's kind of like Krishna almost taking control, right? And Krishna saying that, like Aham Vaishwanara Bhutva, I am like, the primal fire or the primordial fire, right? I am the one that is both your vital energy, your prana, your inhalation, and your apana, your exhalation. And, all four forms of food and the food that is also me.
Yes. Yeah, because you have to look at that in a little more of a context in chapter 15, because chapter 15 is about Purushottama, the ultimate Purusha, because there's lots of references to so many different Purushas in Gita and Prakriti that people get confused. So this is the pinnacle of it, and nothing is beyond this, right? So it is about Jiva. So first few slokas talk about the Jagat, then it talks about the Jiva, and then it talks about the Ishvara or the Brahman. This is when it's coming in. So he gives 4 examples for this Brahman idea. So first is about the sun, where it says Yadaditya Gadam Tejo
Right.
Jagadbhasayade Ilam Yat Chandramasi Yat Chagnau Tat Tejo Vidhi Mamagam. Know that the light and the heat of the sun and the coolness of the moon are mine. Right? And then he talks about earth. Gama Vishijabudani Dharaya Mahamojasa. I permeate the earth and I nourish it and all of that. And then, so sun and moon, earth. So see, from coming from the vaster to the smaller to within, right? So the next is Aham Vaishwanaro Bhuta. So who am I? I am the sun, I am the moon, I am the earth. You come down slowly. I am you. Whatever, so you prana, apana, samayukta, pajamyannam, chaturvidam. The four ways in which you eat, whatever that is digested, is me. Right? And then the fourth one, it goes even subtler. After this, it says, sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishta matta smriti jnanam abohanam cha. So there's smriti and jnanam. It brings into knowledge and memory. So subtler than the fire and the body. So, it's trying to get that whole complex thing just narrowed down into that one single idea.
Yeah, so in some ways, like the thing that I think is beautiful is that it's not like we're thanking God for putting food on the plate or for putting plants on the trees, right? But we're going to that deeper level of saying, as I consume all this, it's a reminder to me that all of this is also God.
Not just the one who, so we say that, God created this, no, God made this. No, so there is this material
This
cost
is
and the
also
efficient
God.
cost.
Yeah.
That is also God, right? So it's not just the creator, the created also, because if you look at it, and that's where Advaita becomes actually very appealing when you start thinking about it. The creator God has to be, if the created also has to be God for you to appreciate that, right? So the creator stays apart and the creator is different. So again, the same cause effect, the material cost and efficiency cost story. So how did the universe come about? If the universe is created by God, from where did universe get created? God himself is the created and the creator. So if you come to that idea, then everything is God, everything is Brahman.
I love that idea. So, in preparing for this episode, I tried to read a few stories about the other sloka that at least at home. So at home, before eating, we say Brahmarpanam and then we say Annapurne. And I came across this really nice story about the Annapurne sloka. Maybe you know this already. But the idea was that Shiva and Parvati were having an argument, not an argument, they were having a disagreement one day where Shiva said, the whole world is me. And everything that you see as food and material wealth and all these kind of material things, they're all just Maya. They're not real. And as the story goes, Parvati got offended by that because she felt belittled. And then she said, okay, I will take away all of the food in the world and we'll see what happens. And so Shiva said, okay. And Parvati went away. But then one by one, his devotees all started talking about how hungry they were feeling and came begging him for food. And even all the devas came begging Shiva for food. And so Shiva had to serve his devotees. So then he looked around, and there was only one place in Kashi that was serving food. And he went to that temple in Kashi, and there, sitting on a throne, was Parvati as Annapurne, wearing a purple and brown outfit and giving out food. And um, and the and the moral of the story goes that yes, it's one thing to realize that all of this is Maya, but it's another thing to also know that the body still needs ongoing nourishment, right? So I think it was this idea that yes, you can totally live on this intellectual plane that food is Brahman, air is Brahman, existence is Brahman, but our material bodies still need food and nourishment.
No, but see, in the Annapurne Sadapurne, what I have always been struck by is Annapurne Sadapurne Shankara Pranavallabe Jnana Vairagya Siddhyartham Bhiksham Dehi Jamem Par. See, so Bhiksha is to keep this body for what? Jnana Vairagya Siddhyartham. Not to keep this body to gain stuff, not to keep this body to do material stuff, to do action. No, none of the action is mentioned. What I want, the ultimate goal of this body is jnana vairagya siddhyartham. To keep the body, to attain jnana and vairagyam, bhiksham dehi cha parvati. Right? So that's very, very strong and very, very powerful. Sometimes we don't think about the inner meanings. We say, okay, Annapurna is food giving, Annapurna is Sadapurna, okay, we get done with it, right? But the subtle things is where, I mean, all these people who wrote this are so are so smart. They have weaved all of this very nicely into it.
So I didn't realize that this actually comes from Shankaracharya's work. That it's within Shankaracharya's Annapurna
Annapurna Sukha.
Suktam that this originated. But you're absolutely right. So I think you have something like Brahmarpanam or the context of Bhagavad Gita, which is to kind of make Arjuna realize that he himself is not the actual doer of anything, but he is God. But then you've got these great shlokas that also, like you said, on a less subtle level, even try to remind somebody that, the job of eating isn't to build muscle or to be healthy necessarily, but what is it for, right? It's to get to the ultimate purpose of this existence, which is improving your vairagyam and then improving your ability to take in jnana. When you do the second half of that shlokam, how do you interpret that with regards to eating? So the first half is Annapurne Sadapurne, Shankara Pranavallabe, Jnanavairagya Siddhyartham Bhiksham Dehi cha Parvati, then Mata cha Parvati Devi, Pita Devo Maheshwaraha, Bandava Shiva Bhakta cha Swadecho Bhuvanatrayam. So where do you kind of tie that into your mental framework of why again does what again should that be triggering in your consciousness as you get ready to eat?
So that I think after this, I don't know. I haven't really thought much about that part, but thinking about it, Bandava Shiva Bhaktaja Swadesho Bhuvanatrayam. Um, if you look at one's individual personality, again, this Bhuvanatrayam idea comes in several different worlds, right? And what are these three worlds? We have only three fields of experience: waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. So the Bhuvanatrayam always is not about earth, heaven, and hell. It's always about the three experiences that I have, right? And all these three experiences is that gift of Shiva, of that ultimate reality. If you go to Upanishads and all, they say there's all these three experiences are supported by the fourth, which is the Turiya, on which all these three lie, and which is exemplified by the word Om, or
It's like the platform for the architecture. Yeah.
exactly, right. It's a platform for all the architecture that you see. Correct. Um, it could be, I don't know. I haven't really thought about it, but if you think about it, this could be that Swadesho Bhuvanatrayam is that in my three fields of experience, in my three uh, um, you know experience realms, everything is Shiva.
The other way that I've thought about it in some ways is also the approach to which you eat, right? Meaning that one aspect is to think about that first couple of lines as sort of saying what is the purpose of the eating, which we talked about as the jnana and the vairagya. The second is remembering who is it that's actually doing the eating, right? It's not you, Narayanan, or me, Rajesh, but it is the person for whom the father is Shiva, the mother is Parvati, for whom their home is not, the address that you're living at, but it's the person that occupies all these worlds. And for one whose identity isn't based on the friends and family that's around you, but understanding that it's like this bigger cosmic identity. So in some ways, I also think about it in that sense. And it brings me back to another conversation that we had where we talked about, um, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks to Arjuna, advising him to do things as though he is doing it in Krishna's name, or to do everything with Krishna in mind. And it's similar here, right? Where when you're eating, you're again, hopefully subconsciously sending the message that even the choices you make at dinner aren't the choices in terms of what would taste good for the tongue of the eater, but what would taste good for the person that's inhabiting these worlds, the person that's a direct son or daughter of God, and for one whose aim is to um, get better intellect and better discrimination and gain deeper knowledge. So if that is the approach with which we're eating, maybe our food choices are going to be a little bit different.
Very, I think you're very right. I think that's a very powerful way to think about it. Yes, you will think about, if you use it in that way, I think you will make the right choices, right? You eventually wouldn't want to make the indweller in this body deal with the unnecessary things that you want to eat. Yes, or maybe move towards more of sattvic food in that sense. Yes.
It's very interesting. Novak Djokovic, right? I mean, legendary tennis player. It must have been probably 4 or 5 years ago at this point that there was like this interview that he did where he talked about how he eats, right? And the fact that he completely has taken all, I think, gluten out of his diet, all breads out of his diet. And what he said in the interview is that I eat so that my body can play tennis well, not because it tastes good, right? So on a very kind of focused level, there was someone that's talking purely about eating so their body can serve a function. And to me, this, especially the Annapurne Slokam, is also just that, right? It's eating so that your body can serve a function, and it's eating for the body that isn't the identity that you have given it, but kind of like the greater cosmic identity,
Correct. Um,
which goes completely
the,
against the Thanksgiving meal, by the
which
way.
yeah, but you can take the Thanksgiving meal and anything, right? So you can say, if you say that everything that I have on the table is a gift of God. It just came here. Of course, your choice has something to do with it, but still, if it's a gift, I think that the big lavish Thanksgiving meal is God's one way of saying, you know what, you've spent a lot of time thinking about me. One day, just go do whatever. Right? And prasada buddhi, that also could be a prasada. Nothing. I mean, at the end of the day, one of the things that I take, sometimes it's in a defeatist way also. Okay, I mean, so I should not say that this is always by through proper understanding and sense. No, through a defeatist way also. Uh, Failures also are well accepted if you do prasadam. We say that, you know what, even and I've done this, even when I know I haven't put my complete effort, right? Even when I have kind of slacked off and the result was expected, because I slacked off, I say, yeah, that's probably what God wanted me to do. But I've been in a little bit defeatist way also. But I think that even in the defeatist way, not blaming somebody for it and laying it at the feet of God, is somewhat little more redeeming than trying to find fault with somebody for things that you did not do well. So I kind of think, you know what, God is not going to come back and ask me, why did you do this to me? Leave it with him. This also leave it with him. And next time, make sure that you don't have to tell him that you did this, right? At the end of the day, and then if he is, the same thing, right? If he is so powerful, if the God is all encompassing, omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent, with all of those words, if things did not go the way I want to, same thing like we were saying, maybe a different time, maybe a different outcome, maybe that's not the way it's supposed
Correct.
to
Yeah.
be. That gives a lot of peace of mind.
Yeah. I think that's a great concluding point for today. And we will all try to keep that in mind, right? That everything that comes our way is a prasada, and our job is to maintain a prasada buddhi that allows us to take it all as such. All right. So we will catch up next time. Have a safe trip.
Yeah.
Hari Om.
Hari Om. Thank you.